You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, after Justin Trudeau came back from India, people were talking about the fact, well, it didn't go that well. I've seen some of the pictures, by the way, and I'm sure you've seen them as well. He didn't look like a happy camper in some of those meetings with the Indian Prime Minister.
Cold
Then
shoulder.
there's a story today, breaking now, to your headline, which goes, holy cow, Canada accusing India of what?
Of having been behind the murder of a Canadian citizen, Sikh activist, and a separatist. Basically, there is a faction within the Sikh community that calls for the creation of an independent Sikh state called Khalistan. And this gentleman's name was Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was gunned down last June outside of the Sikh temple in Surrey, British Columbia. And at the time, a lot of people within the Sikh independence movement were saying, yes, India is responsible for this. But man, for the Prime Minister of Canada to stand up in the House today and basically say we have credible information from CSIS saying that they were indeed behind this, that in fact he had raised this issue with Indian President Modi during the G20 summit, which may account for the reason why none of them look too happy in those photos. I got to tell you, I just have an overview of the situation for Sikh independence and its ramifications in Canada. But right now, I'm talk about changing the channel. Talk about going from, oh, here he goes, he's going to get walloped on the economy, inflation, cost of living, and to drop this bombshell and then essentially say, we are going to do our best to get to the bottom of this with a country which is in fact Canada's 10th largest trading partner. This is no messing around. This is not, we are, concerned. This is a flat out, essentially a flat out accusation, basically saying as well that the assassination of a Canadian citizen by a foreign power is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty. Now, politically speaking, this, as I say, changes the channel in so many ways. But I don't want to be flip about this because we're talking about a person's life. But it has been when the murder occurred in June, there was a lot of analysis done on it. And I saw one BBC report saying that Canada's intelligence community had already advised the Prime Minister that India was perhaps the biggest source of foreign interference in Canada's affairs, which leads us to another interesting file, which is, you want to have a public inquiry into foreign interference? Well, you're going to get one, but be careful what you ask for because we may not just be concentrating on China. The other thing as well is in this entire affair, now I may be wrong, the day is young, but in this entire affair, I don't think Pierre Poilievre can say that much because, A, he doesn't know the entire story, and he has proudly and repeatedly said he does not want security clearance because it would keep him from speaking out. So I got to tell you, this is I guarantee you every front page tomorrow, and indeed every site we're seeing right now, the number one story isn't inflation. It isn't the cost of living. This channel, at least for the time being, has been changed, and it's going to be very interesting to see how the opposition parties deal with this, because we are, in fact, talking about a murder that occurred on Canadian soil, the murder of a Canadian citizen. No one, I think, no one saw this coming.
Yeah.
And anyone suggests they do, I think, maybe talking through their hat. But, a very unexpected twist, and one I would think Trudeau has figured out the next moves for. There was supposed to be a trade delegation going to India in October. That has been canceled. What else is going to happen? Like I say, the story's unfolding even as we speak.
We've expelled our top Indian diplomat. I'm watching Melanie Joly speak about it right now on
There you
CTV
go.
News
Okay.
Channel.
Well, I'm sure that the Indian government will reciprocate. But man, oh man, there's a pretty fair. I think it's like 1.3 million Canadians are of Indian origin. It's a pretty fair-sized community, and this is a story which right now I think a lot of people are scrambling to get a handle on. But as I say, talk about changing the topic of conversation, and what will the political reply be from the opposition? That one, I'm sure there wasn't that much talk when Trudeau rose to speak in the House about this. We'll see, of course, over the course of the day what the opposition will have to say. But right now, you know, and I'm sorry if I sound a bit. I'm after all these years, I'm still not used to Monday blockbusters. So this is quite something.
Jim, what do we? I'm wanting to understand why he was targeted. I know that he had been deemed a tourist. A terrorist. I'm sorry, not a tourist, a terrorist. Why potentially had this man been murdered? What do we know?
Well, we do know that in the past, without the link being made to the Indian government, some vocal supporters of Sikh independence have met unfortunate violent ends.
Okay.
And whereas their supporters are unequivocal, they lay this squarely at the feet of the Indian government. Up until now, this is the first time. You know, the head of government, certainly the head of, like I say, this is not somebody making a suggestion on the internet. This is the Prime Minister of Canada flat out saying, we believe the Indian government. I have intelligence reports saying the Indian government was behind this. This is not the kind of thing you can say, you know, 2 days down the road, you can say, well, no, I didn't really mean that. These are pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Accusatory words to use, and honestly, you know, I have no idea for the time being where this is going to go. But I think in the short term, whereas I think if the opposition were sort of licking their chops, thinking Trudeau's going to be coming in today and we're going to be having a feast, they got a surprise.
Surprise!
We all.
So I want to get you to weigh in before we run out of time on this whole Anthony Housefather debacle. He, of course, losing that parliamentary secretary seat he had, I guess it was in procurement. And this, everyone's saying the same thing, Jim. This is payback for having taken a position in opposing the government's Bill C-13. You buying that?
Well, yes, I am. And in fact, when Mr. Housefather was the only member of the Liberal caucus to vote against injecting Bill 96 into the Official Languages Act, it was a given. There will be consequences down the road. What I find particularly petty and desperate on the part of Trudeau is the fact it was one guy. He could have left this alone. And by doing this, I guess he's trying to send a message to the caucus or whatever. But the fact is he has simply revived how if you stand up for your convictions, if you stand up for your beliefs in a party that supposedly says you're supposed to stand up for your beliefs, you pay a price for it.
That's really the part, you know, when we reached out for comment, and typically, you know, Anthony Housefather's been pretty available on this. He's not shied away from talking about this, but today the message was, sorry, I can't talk about this. You should address your questions to the PMO. I imagine they're going to want to talk about this either, so it's going to be curious, I think, to see how this does play out, or whether this just goes away.
Oh, I don't think it's going to go away. It's not going to go away in, how can I put it, our greater broadcast area. I think by you know, doing this, giving him this long after the fact slap, I think anybody who had any doubts that Justin Trudeau has said goodbye to Anglo Quebec should have those doubts resolved today. We're off his radar, and we will remain off his radar. Quebec, Francophone Quebec, even if it's a Quebec run by a populist, discrimination-promoting government, if it can deliver seats to Justin Trudeau's Liberals, they can do whatever they want.
James Mennie, the Montreal Gazette. This will be interesting to follow. Thank you, Jim.
Adamat.